So we know dodges have iframes, but did you know counterattacks also have iframes? Hello everyone! I wanted to share this really useful counterattack iframe trick I discovered in Wuthering Waves. I've been utilizing it quite a lot lately, and I specifically like to use the delayed counter. I'll go into detail on what this means, but it should work on all the characters, and it's especially useful for dodging quick and deadly attack chains. So when fighting enemies with consecutive attacks, or when fighting multiple enemies who are attacking you one after the other. I'll start with a quick overview of how dodges work in this game. There are two types of dodges, the normal dodge and the perfect dodge. Normal dodges dash you in a direction, and you can chain two in a row before it goes on a brief cooldown. Perfect dodges are triggered when you dodge somewhat near an enemy attack before it hits. Your character model does not need to collide with the attack hitbox. This is important because it means you do not need to dash into the attack to trigger a perfect dodge. In fact, you can often dash away from an attack and trigger the perfect dodge as long as you're near the hitbox. As you can see here, even though I am dodging away from where this arrow should have hit, it triggers a perfect dodge nonetheless. Perfect dodges have a flash indicator, a sound effect, and an ensuing slow-mo, and gives you an invincibility of around 1 second. Oh, also, here's one really interesting finding I came across while making this video. I went and tested every single character's dodge invincibility frames, and it turns out shorter characters have fewer invincibility frames during the perfect dodge compared to taller characters. So Encore and Verena have the least iframes after a perfect dodge, roughly 48 frames of invincibility. The mid-height characters such as Rover, Yingling, and Jinxi have around 64. And then the taller ones such as Zhiyan, Calcaro, and Mortefi average around 72. That's almost 40% more invincibility frames just for being tall. Shorter characters already physically run slower in this game. Now it turns out they also have quite a bit shorter iframes. Life is really tough for the short ones. Why is this game so realistic? Anyways, usually it's not too difficult to time a perfect dodge versus a one-hit attack. However, it becomes a lot trickier when you're trying to dodge and maneuver through a multi-hit chain attack, such as this one. There are two ways to extend your iframe. The first is to simply dodge again. Most of you probably already know this, but you can chain perfect dodges until you run out of stamina and remain iframed throughout the duration as long as you keep triggering them. The downside to this is that you won't be doing any damage since you're dodging, and if you wait too long to dodge, you can get hit in between. Also, if you spam two dodges without triggering a perfect dodge, then your dodge will enter cooldown and you can get hit. The second method, and the one that I've been using, involves the dodge counterattack. Normally, after you execute a perfect dodge, you can press basic attack after to execute a counterattack. Quite a few characters' counterattacks deal a lot of damage, so it is encouraged to counter where you can. There are two important things I recently discovered about this counterattack. The first is that every character's counterattack actually comes with iframes, separate from the dodge iframe. Your normal perfect dodge gives you around 1 second of invincibility starting from the moment the flash indicator starts, and the counterattack can give you almost another second of invincibility starting from 3 to 4 frames after you trigger it. To help you visualize, it looks something like this. The second thing I discovered about counterattacks is that you do not need to trigger your counterattack right away. There's actually roughly a 1 second window where you can trigger the counterattack, and as you'll see, you might want to wait before triggering your counterattack. This waiting before triggering the counterattack is what I like to refer to as the delayed counter. This can be very useful because it lets you utilize the counterattack as an iframe while dealing damage. In some cases, waiting will mean that your dodge iframe will run out before you trigger your counterattack. so you cannot use the delayed counter trick to completely iframe continuous attacks such as the rain here. However, versus bosses, they generally have a small delay even between their quicker attacks, so you can usually perfectly time this delayed counter with their attack. As an example, the Crownless always performs this quick sequence of slashes whenever he transforms into his second phase. Versus this type of attack, you usually have 3 options. The first is to continually dodge. This is a fairly safe option if you can time your dodges well, but this also means you won't be able to do any damage during this time, and sometimes I find that when you spam the dodge too quickly, you won't trigger the perfect dodge, and then your dodge goes on cooldown because you spammed it twice in a row, and then you get hit. The second option is the super sweaty option, utilizing the quick counter. Quick counter is where you press basic attack immediately to counter attack as soon as possible. This option has the highest ceiling for damage since you can technically farm a counter for every attack, but it requires a lot more precise timing. I often get hit while doing this, so I started going with the third option for the attacks I was less confident on. This third method involves the technique I mentioned earlier, the delayed counter. Essentially, it utilizes the fact that your counterattack can iframe to dodge one attack and then iframe the next with a delayed counter. So instead of dodging 7 times, you use 1 dodge for one attack, followed by a delayed counter to iframe the next attack. In my opinion, it's a lot safer and it also lets you deal damage. Envision your counterattack as another dodge and time it accordingly. Here are some other attacks from the Crownless where I like to use the delayed counter. Essentially, the delayed counter utilizes the fact that because the counterattack also comes with iframes, instead of dodging and quickly spamming counterattack to try to get out another dodge before the next attack, you dodge, wait a bit, and then time your counterattack to iframe the next attack. Not spamming the inputs has helped me dodge a lot cleaner while also dealing damage. This technique is also very useful in a lot of other fights. For instance, versus Memphis and the clones, when the 2 bros are attacking in quick succession, you can often dodge one attack, wait a split second, and then utilize the delayed counter to perfectly iframe the next attack. It's also useful in the tower when you're fighting against 2 or more enemies. I do want to make it clear, I don't think you should always use the delayed counter. Rather, I believe that this is a very useful technique to learn about and just have at your disposal. In combat, you should use a mixture of what you prefer, along with what makes more sense based on the enemy attacks. I think that's it. Thank you for watching. I hope my explanations made sense. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy my content, as it helps my channel a lot. I know I release a variety of things on here, but thank you to everyone who has been watching all my videos and supporting my content. I really appreciate it. Zenless Zone Zero is releasing soon, and I will probably cover that as well. Not sure how I will balance everything, but we'll see. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and see you on stream or in my next video. Can we enter? Wait, no, I pressed... He's even face palming.